welcome back. So at this point, you probably have a better picture of what's going on right now, but is it often that simple? We were talking about time and effort in the previous segment, and hopefully you don't think that you can do a whole project in one night. There's usually more going on, and it kind of goes back to the idea of taking things in smaller chunks. It is usually better for getting the whole thing done as a whole, so that you can try to make sure and focus on each little individual part of what's going on. What parts are there? Well, you've got the name of the project. What are you doing? You've got the rules for the project. You have to do this way. You've got, if you're working in a group, you have to know hopefully who your group is. If there's roles for your group, hopefully you know what role each person has. You have to know the parameters of the project and say, this is, again, very similar to rules. This is what we have to kind of fit everything down into. Here's how we have to do that, like on a technical side of things is the main difference. And importantly, what do you have to turn in? What do you have to deliver upon? Hopefully we can figure out with all those things what steps we need to take and in what order we need to take them in. You'll see a lot of overlap between this and the previous segment if you're jumping into just this segment. We want to work step by step. Looking at each of these little parts and pieces, can we say, okay, we've got to build this first. Once we've got all this built, we can do this. You see the kind of short-term planning going on here. How long should each of these parts take and still get done on time? Who does what, and how are you going to collaborate, and how are you going to figure out that so-and-so has got this done? There's actually a lot of great resources online for project management, and I'll leave that to you. For example, there's a service called Trello, then there's a service called Slack to help kind of in the collaboration side of things. But it also helps you break down your little projects into their little parts to make sure that we can get them all done. Let's work backwards. So we know what the project is going to end up being, and we kind of know the steps. For example, let's say we're writing an English paper. So in this example, we have kind of research. We have the first draft. We have editing. We have the second draft. We have perhaps going to the writing center, and then you have submitting. You want to give yourself more time than you think because things tend to take longer than you expect. So perhaps you want to give yourself 2 days to go down to the writing center to have your essay checked. Well, okay. If your project is due on the 31st of the month, and it takes you 2 days to go to the writing center, well, then you better start going somewhere around the 29th. If it takes you, for example, a week to edit the previous step, well, if we're on the 29th and we need a week to edit, then we better start editing on the 22nd. And kind of working backwards to when we need to start each part of this project. So you can kind of already see the short-term planning going on here. For a bigger project, we can now take each of these little parts and add it to your personal short-term planner to make sure that you're upholding your part of the group and getting what you need to done for the group as a whole. Start early, give yourself extra time if you can. So, for this activity, we're going to plan out a project. Go ahead and pick one of your projects. If you don't have any, a very, very common one that people often forget about is our exams. Well, what parts are there to an exam? Perhaps studying chapter 1, studying chapter 2, and watching the lectures from class or looking at the review materials. Little steps to help you kind of review and study for your exam. Let's take one of our projects and fill out to the best of our ability what pieces we have and what would have to go into getting that final project, that final product rather. Do you have any project with the same people? Do you know how to contact these people in your group if you have a group? And so think about, do you think that keeping to a schedule will help you be more effective? And looking at your team dynamic specifically, how will it help everyone kind of work together and get along? If it is an individual project, the same question still applies. Will it help you to be more effective? Which kind of is that on your own? How will this affect your workflow?